All right. Well, good morning and good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants event. My name is Joe Grabowski, and I'll be your host for today. A huge welcome to our first event in the Mountain Parks Peak Discovery Series, which will run from now until June. We're really excited to be launching these events with Parks Canada. And for the next several months, you can join us for exciting virtual education programs live from Jasper, Waterton Lakes, Banff, Kootenay, Glacier, and Yoho National Parks. Each program is going to share a unique story and will give you a look behind the scenes at these amazing places with Parks Canada experts. We'll explore a variety of topics, including wildlife conservation, archaeological history, protecting species at risk, and so much more. So our first event today, kicking things off, is just in time for Bat Week, just in time for Halloween. We're connecting with Marian McGraw. She's a Public Outreach Education Officer at Palisades Stewardship Education Center. And today we are going to learn all about bats. We're going to discover how Parks Canada helps take care of these important species at risk. And I personally love bats. I love being out at dusk and seeing them in the sky, getting ready for their night of adventures. I'm going to bring Marian in with us right now. Hey, Marian, how are we doing today?
Oh, I'm fantastic. Thank you, Joe, so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
All right. Well, it's great to have you live with us. We have a great group of classrooms joining us from right across North America. Many of them have been introducing themselves in the chat. I'll just give a few quick shout outs here. Scarborough, Ontario, Troy, New York, Belleville, Ontario. Miss Gail's class is hanging out with us. Spruce Grove, Alberta, Brights Grove, Ontario, Oakville, Ontario, Quebec, Toronto, even Miami, Florida. So we'll shout out some more as time goes on, but it looks like we've got a great crew hanging out with us today.
Oh, that's fantastic. It's so exciting to have everybody coming from so far away to come and learn about bats with me and with the rest of the crew here.
All right, excellent. Well, I'm going to let you take over for a little bit. We're going to mix in a little Kahoot quiz. So we'll talk a little bit more about that after you've presented, and then Q&A action. I think we're going to have a lot of fun today.
All right, fantastic. Well, welcome everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. As Joe so wonderfully presented, my name is Marian McGraw, and I work for Parks Canada in Jasper National Park in Alberta. Before I get started, I would like to respectfully acknowledge that Jasper National Park is in Treaty 6 and 8 territory, as well as the traditional territories of the Beaver, Cree, Secwepemc, Ojibwe, Stoney, and Métis people. And I have the honor and privilege of working and living in these traditional territories, which I'm grateful for every single day. It's so exciting to be here and to talk to you about a topic that I've been learning all sorts of things about. But to give you a little bit more context first, we'll just pull up the map, pull up the PowerPoint here, and show you where Jasper is on the map of Canada. So here we are, we have the map here, and Jasper National Park and the other mountain parks that are part of our wonderful Peak Discovery series are on the western side of Canada. Over here, Alberta and British Columbia as well. Let's zoom in a little bit here. So here's Alberta, and here are the mountain parks that are going to be part of this amazing series that, as Joe was saying, is going to be running throughout the school year up until June. Now, Jasper National Park, as well as several other national parks and provincial parks in the Rocky Mountains, is actually part of a UNESCO World Heritage Site. So it's very, very special. And it's really cool to be here. We've got amazing lakes, beautiful mountains, forests. We've got rushing rivers and waterfalls and amazing glaciers as well. And of course, the wildlife like black bears, bighorn sheep, grizzly bears, elk, wolves, and deer. And a lot of our visitors love coming to see these wonderful, amazing animals. But you know what? I think the smaller critters deserve their turn in the spotlight too. Of course, what we're all here about, bats. Bats are incredible, amazing creatures. There are 18 different species of bats that live in Canada, and you can find 8 of them in Jasper National Park, at least if you stay up late enough. Because, of course, bats are nocturnal. They like to come out at night to hunt the insects. All of the bats in Canada, they eat bugs. And you can sometimes see them flapping around in the dark, and they fly in such a cool way. Another really cool thing about bats is that they are actually, for their size, the longest living mammal. Isn't that amazing? To give you an idea, some bats, they have an average lifespan of about 10 years, although scientists have found little brown bats that are in their 30s. In comparison, a mouse, which is about the same size, only lives about 1.5 years in the wild. Now, unfortunately, not everybody is as big a fan of bats as we are. And I have to admit, it did take me a little bit of time to learn to appreciate the bats as well. Sometimes we can be scared of things that we don't understand. And there's still so much to learn about the bats. But instead of telling you all about how I learned to love the bats, why don't I show you? Why don't we take a jump back in time as we cue up the video, and you can learn along with me as I discover about the bats that are right here at the Palisades Center in Jasper, and how I learned to really appreciate what amazing animals bats really are.
I'm very excited. I just started a new job at the Palisades Stewardship Education Center here in Jasper, Alberta. I'm really looking forward to helping out with all the fun and educational programs and to seeing cool animals like bears and caribou. Yeah. I know that Parks Canada looks after all sorts of plants and animals, especially species at risk. Those are species that are in danger of disappearing if nothing's done to help them. What was that? It's coming from above me? Is that a rat? Do rats make that kind of a sound? I better ask my supervisor. Bats? Oh. Oh dear. Cougars and bears I can appreciate, but bats? They're so weird. I don't know if I can share my office space with bats. I mean, I want to stay in the mountain parks. It's so beautiful here. Maybe I'll call out my friend in Banff and see if they have a job opening there.
Hi, Marian. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Great, thanks. How are you enjoying Jasper?
Oh, it's great. The mountains are beautiful. I've seen some really cool wildlife like bears and even wolves, but I've got a little problem. They've got bats here.
Oh,
Yeah, and I'm not sure if I can share my space with bats. So I thought I'd call you and see if there's anything opening up in Banff.
well, I'm sure we can look into it, but you know that we have bats here too, right?
Really?
In fact, we've been doing a little research into which species are here, and we found a hibernaculum of little brown bats up along the Icefields Parkway. A hibernaculum is a place where bats go to hibernate over the winter.
Wait. Bats hibernate like bears?
Oh yeah, some of them do. Some of them migrate to warmer places, but the little brown bat's one of the hibernators, and it stays here, and it lowers its body temperature and its heart rate during the winter, like other animals that hibernate. In fact, they can lower their heart rate from 200 beats per minute down to about 20 beats per minute or less during hibernation.
Oh, that's interesting. Thanks for the information. I still think I might try some other mountain parks. Thank you, though.
Okay, that's fine. Take care. Bye-bye.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm all right. I was just wondering if you knew about any cool jobs opening up in Waterton.
I thought you were working in Jasper.
I am, but there are bats in the attic, and I'm okay with other animals. I'm just not too sure about bats.
That's too bad. I don't know if we have anything open, except for helping the researchers with their bat projects.
Waterton has bats too? Oh man.
Yeah, lots of them are migratory, but we also have the little brown bat. Bats use the major waterways like highways and for hunting insects. And there are a lot of insects around. Certain bats also need a lot of space on the water for when they're thirsty. They come swooping down and drink while they're flying, filling up like tiny little water bombers.
Oh, that's neat. I knew bats were the only mammal that could truly fly, but I didn't know they drank and flight too. Huh. Well, I'm still not too sure about them, so I might try another mountain park. Thank you, though. Take care.
Take care.
Wow. Bats eat and drink and flight? That is pretty neat. I wonder how many bugs a bat can eat per night. Many. Half their body weight in insects? And mothers with pups can eat up to 100% of their own weight? That's like if I ate 10-pound bags of potatoes in a single night. Got a stomachache just thinking about it. What was that? Mosquitoes? You like to eat mosquitoes? Well, there's no shortage of those at the Palisades. I don't know if that fact's enough to make me change my mind about bats, though. Well, you don't have to take it personally, Miss Squeaky. It's just the way that I feel. So there are bats in Banff and in Waterton. Maybe I should try the Columbia Mountains in BC. I'll call up Mount Revelstoke and Glacier National Parks and see if there's anything there.
Hi, Marian. Thanks for the call.
No problem, it's nice to see you. I was wondering if you knew of any job openings in Mount Revelstoke or Glacier. Preferably away from any bats.
Oh, you don't like bats?
Not particularly. I mean, I've learned some really interesting things about them, but I'm not really a fan.
Well, that's too bad. Our parks have actually closed some of our caves to visitors to protect little brown bats and northern bats because they're actually a species at risk.
I just talked to my friends in Banff and Waterton, and they have little brown bats too, so if bats are everywhere in the mountain parks, how can they be endangered?
Well, that's a good question, and there are a few dangers to bats in Canada, but the biggest one is that they're threatened by a disease called white nose syndrome. It came over from Europe and it's been making its way west.
Oh, I think I've heard of white nose syndrome. It's caused by a fungus that grows on bats' noses and wings, and it wakes them up during hibernation because it's really itchy and irritating.
That's right. It makes them really itchy and it wakes them up, and it's hard for bats when they wake up during hibernation. It takes a lot of energy to wake up when you're that sleepy.
I know that feeling.
They need to raise their heart rate and body temperature, and that burns a lot of fat.
So if they wake up too often, they burn too much energy and use up too much of their fat reserves. And I guess in the winter, there aren't enough bugs to eat.
Exactly. Unfortunately, they starve because there's not enough food around during the wintertime. Scientists estimate that between 90 and 100% of bats in a colony that gets infected with white nose syndrome will die.
Oh, wow. I had no idea that some bats were endangered. Thank you for letting me know.
Well, my pleasure, and good luck.
Take care. Miss Squeaky, did you know that? Well, why didn't you tell me then? Right. I guess I wasn't ready to listen to you, was I? It's so sad that little brown bats are endangered. Maybe I should talk to Paul again and see if there's anything that we're doing in Jasper to help the bats. Well, I'm glad you approve.
Hi, Paul. So I've been learning a lot about bats recently, and I just thought I'd come to you because you know a lot about them and ask you what Jasper National Park is doing to help some of the bats, or what the Palisades is doing.
Well, when it comes to the park, the main thing that we're doing is monitoring for bats, the different bat species that are here, getting an idea of where they are in the park and what sort of numbers that there are. There also are a few caves that have been identified in the park where there may be some bat use and also some hibernacula. So the question is, do they use that over the winter time? And so just getting a bit of trying to understand that a bit more, as well as the park participates in a survey that's nationwide and North American wide. So it's done by setting up instruments to monitor bats as they fly back and forth across an area, and just to get an idea of how many bats are around. So by doing this baseline work, we can then know what is the baseline of bat activity in this park, and that will be useful for the future when, unfortunately, but likely, we're going to have white nose syndrome, in this area. Like eventually it's going to show up. So at least we'll know what we've got beforehand, what conditions were before white nose syndrome showed up. So that's what this happens on the park side. And then from the Palisades side, the difference is the main thing we're doing at the Palisades is education, having the bat cam up and just trying to create awareness and bring awareness to what some of the issues are around bats, and encouraging people to learn to love bats, so just like you, come and figure it out.
I have, definitely. We have a bat cam.
We do have a bat cam, yeah. It's one of the very cool things that I think we should go take a look at it if you want.
Yeah, let's take a look.
Okay, come on. Marian, so this is how it works. This is just a little camera right here, and we mount that onto the roof, or inside in the attic. We know that there are bats in there, so we can mount this camera in and attach it right to the ceiling, and then the camera's catching whatever's going on. This camera can see infrared light, captures infrared light, and then sends a little signal, or a wireless signal, to down to the computer, through the modem into a computer, so we can watch bats live, just from our desk, from my desk, from your desk, or from a device, from a tablet, wherever we want. So it's a crazy thing. So you can see the live bats here at the Palisades.
We can see the bats.
You can see the bats, yeah.
That's so cool.
Very, very cool. And not only you, but anybody else. So anybody, we share the link so that students all around can watch bats in real time and see what's going on. That's what happens, yeah.
I want to take a look at that.
Yeah, totally. Let's go check it out.
So this is actually footage from the bat cam at the Palisades Center. That means it's just the mothers and the pups, and we can see there are 2 little pups there, and one of them's nursing. I guess it's hungry. Long-legged bats are one of a few species that'll come and roost in human buildings, but like little brown bats, they hibernate elsewhere, usually in caves or mines. I think I see another bat playing peekaboo behind the beam there. Miss Squeaky, is that you? That's her. So the bats are usually here from May until September, and then they go off to find a place to hibernate over the winter. They're a lot more active than I thought that they would be. They only go out for a few hours to hunt at night. Doesn't look like they know much about personal space either. Well, it was nice to meet you, little bats. I'm going to do more research to find out more about you. Have a good day. It really is amazing how opinions can change when you just get a little bit more of information. So I hope you enjoyed coming along on that journey with me. The bats here at the Palisades, they've gone off now to their winter hibernaculum, but they will be back next year, usually around mid-June. And if you're interested in taking a look at the bat cam once the bats are back, you can check out our website, the Palisades Center website on the Parks Canada website as well. And we can pop that link in for you a little bit later on. So I had so much fun learning about the bats, getting to go out for a bat count at night and watch the bats as they emerged from the buildings, and just learn to really appreciate so much more about these. And I know I have a lot of questions, so I bet our classes have a lot of questions as well. So I would love to get going and answer some of the questions that you might have about our bats.
All right, that's great. Marian, thank you so much for that great presentation, teaching us so much more about bats. I'm glad that you are able to be with them a little bit more, to coexist in the office. They do so many amazing ecosystem services for us. They are just amazing little creatures, and you shared some just amazing facts with us today. All right, before we jump into some Q&A action, as promised, we're going to do a little Kahoot quiz. We're going to see who was paying attention during the live event today. I'm going to share the link here to get us into that Kahoot action. Here it is here. Let me just bring that up. There we go. Okay, so here's your link. Head over to kahoot.it. It's going to ask you for a pin. Lucky for you, I have one of those handy. I'm going to pop that up and share it on the screen, and then you can pop that pin in. So if you're lucky enough to have one-to-one devices right at your desk, you can sign in that way. If not, your teacher can put it up on the front board and you can shout out your answer. Either way, let's get that screen shared and let's get that Kahoot action happening. So here we go. So you'll see our pin number for today is right there, 316-3245. We'll give a few moments here for students to start joining us. Shouldn't take too long. There they come already. Excellent. And if you haven't done one of these with us before, each question has 20 seconds on the clock. The right answer, of course, gets you some points. The quicker you get that right answer in that 20 seconds, the more points you're going to get. Of course, if you put your answer in really fast and it's wrong, we got nothing. No points for you. So you need that correct answer and you need it in speedy quick. Lots of students joining Marian. Wow. We'll give them another few moments. We're already pushing 100 and going strong. So we'll give them some more time. Again, 20 seconds on the clock for each question. Take a look at those answers, and it's all things that Marian touched on during her great presentation today. Oh, still going strong, so I'm going to give it another couple more seconds. We're pushing 150 students and climbing. All right, so great to see so many students joining us. I'm going to get things started now, even though it looks like we're pushing 200. That's really cool. So it'll give us a couple more seconds as it's starting off. Remember, I'll read out the questions as well for you, and then pop in your answer as quickly as you can. Here we go. Question 1. All right, Jasper National Park is part of which mountain chain? Is it the Andes, the Rockies, the Alps, or the Himalayas? We touched on that right at the beginning, where you can find Jasper. Whoa, look at those answers flying up there. Very cool. All right. Great job, everybody. Let's take a quick look here. Wahid is in first place, but everybody's, following up nice and close in behind. Let's jump to our next question here. Question 2. How many species of bats are there in Canada? Was that 5? Was it 10? Was it 15? Or was that 18 species that can be found in Canada? A couple more seconds on the clock. All right, most students went with 18 species. And Not Madix has taken the lead. Let's jump to our next question here. What is a hibernaculum? We talked about that in the presentation. Is it where bats roost, so sleep during the day? Is it where they hibernate during the winter, where they feed during the night, or places where bats aren't found? All right, good job. The most went with where they hibernate during the winter. We also learned that some of them do migrate. Very cool. And no change in that leaderboard. On to our next question. 2 more to go. How much of their weight can a bat typically eat at night? Was that 10%, 60%, 80%, or 50%, about half of their body weight? Now, we did learn that a mother with young, maybe up to 100%, which is pretty cool. But on average, what did we hear today? Good job, everybody. About 50%. Final question. Not Owen has taken the lead. Anything can happen in our last question. Here we go. How does white nose syndrome affect bats? Did it damage their wings? Does it make them fall into a deeper sleep? Did it wake them up and use their fat reserves? Or did it have no effect on them at all? All right, most went with that. It does wake them up. It's itchy, it's irritating. And then those precious, precious fat reserves, there's no food for them to go out and find. So looking at our podium, 3rd place, Holkima. Good job. 2nd place, Not Owen, slipped from 1st. And Shay's sneaking in to take that big victory. All right. Very cool. Well, a huge shout out to our classrooms for playing along with us today. Great to see so many of you joining us. And Marian, as you mentioned, I think it's time we get into a little Q&A action because we have tons of questions in the chat already. And I know we've got lots from our camera crews. So let's get this going. Okay, let's see. We're going to head to Newcastle, Ontario. We've got some 3rd graders hanging out with us with Miss Smith Bischoff. I'm going to bring them in now. Newcastle. How are we doing, 3rd graders? Good to see ya.
Okay, go ahead, Piper. How high do bats fly?
How high do bats fly? That's a really good question. It depends on the species, and actually, I'm not sure of the record of how bats fly, but they can fly pretty high up in the trees and above to make their way around. But tell you what, if we get your contact information, I will ask our bat experts in the park here, and I will get back to you on that one.
There we go. That's a great question to get us started, and a little homework as well, because I think that would be great for the students to research themselves. And what we can also do is I can reach out to the classrooms afterwards who have registered, and if they have any questions we don't get to, we'll make sure we collect some of those questions, because I know that bats are definitely something students are curious about, and I have no doubt that they're going to have lots of questions about them for us. So let's take a trip across the country. Let's go to Surrey, British Columbia. Got some 3rd graders hanging out with Miss Thiessen. I'm going to bring them in now. Mrs. T's class. Hey, Surrey, how we doing?
Hi there.
Oops.
I feel good. Thanks for asking.
I think Surrey was pretty close to Siri on my Mac. But anyways, Mrs. T's class, if you want to unmute, go ahead and ask your question. Oh, you're still on mute, so I can't hear your question. If your teacher's there, maybe she can unmute the mic for you. Here she comes. There we go. We'll get that question.
There we go.
Perfect. We got you now.
Why do bats hang down from caves or tunnels?
Sorry, could you repeat that?
Take your mask.
Why do bats hang down from caves or tunnels?
Oh, why do they hang upside down? That's a really good question. They're actually really cool creatures and they're specialized to do that. So it's kind of like filling a niche in the ecology. It's a great way where they can find a lot of space altogether. And one really cool thing about bats is that when they grab on, like when we hang on the monkey bars, right, we have to use our muscles. I know that if I hang on for the monkey bars for too long, I get tired and I have to let go. But for bats, they have to engage their muscles to let go. And actually, once they've grabbed, they've got tendons in their legs that actually let them hang, and they're completely relaxed. So their bodies are built for hanging upside down. And they can fit a lot of bats in a little space, and up higher, they're protected from predators too.
All right, very cool. Another great question. Let's zip over to YouTube because I can see the questions piling up there. So let's see. Oh, here's a fun one. Miss Kerner's class, there's some sixth graders hanging out with us, and they're curious about how big can bats get?
Oh, that's a really good question. So all of the bats in Canada are known as microbats. So they're actually pretty small, but one of the biggest bats in the world is a fruit bat, and it's called the golden crowned flying fox. And their wingspan is over 5 feet long. So that is taller than I am from wingtip to wingtip. It can weigh up to about 3 pounds. In comparison, I have it's just a model. It's not the actual skull, but the skull of a little brown bat, which is one of our Canadian microbats. And you can see how tiny that one is. I'll show you the wing of a fruit bat as well. Again, this is a model, but it gives you an idea of how much bigger the fruit bats can be than the microbats that we find here in Canada. So bats are really, really cool. Their order name is Chiroptera, which means hand wing. So unlike birds, they actually fly using their hands. And you can see the finger bones right there. That's part of a bat's wing.
All right, very cool. I will never forget. I lived in Australia for a year and we landed at the airport in Sydney. Came outside, it was night. I don't know what I was expecting, but it just, you see all the buildings. It looks like anywhere else you are in the world. But a flying fox flew over with a wingspan probably just over 1 meter. And that's different. That's a big bat. So that was really cool. I'll never forget the first time I saw a flying fox and how big they can get. Okay, let's go to another one of our live camera classrooms. So here we go. Let's go to Alberta. We're going to go to Edmonton this time. Miss Bond's crew. Let's see if I can find that right group. There they are. I believe it's our grade 6 squirrels. How are we doing, grade 6 squirrels?
Hi.
There they are. I see bats in the background as well. Very cool. We're ready.
Are bats what cause the coronavirus?
So that's a good question. And as far as I'm aware, there's not enough scientific evidence to say that bats cause the coronavirus. And there is a lot of fear around bats sometimes. They cause all these different diseases, but they are wild animals, but they're not any more dangerous than any other wild animals. So if you do see a bat or find a bat that's just kind of hanging out in your yard, you don't want to touch it. You want to make sure that you call the experts. But bats are such a cool animal, and I think that we need to learn to love the bats as much as I can tell that everybody else in this call does.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. And we host a friend from time to time down in Mexico. His name is Rodrigo Marian. He's the Batman of Mexico. He's been studying bats for over 40 years, talking about all the great things they do for the ecosystem, from spreading seeds around and keeping the number of insects in check, and things like that, pollination of plants. And actually, we can learn a lot from studying bats. Because they do get coronaviruses that can be similar to ours. So we can learn a lot from researching bats about, future vaccines and things like that. So as he says, bats are our friend. And Marian, I think you'd agree with that as well. So let's jump back into YouTube here. There's so many questions. Let's grab another one here. All right. Oh, here's an interesting one. So Miss Weaver's crew is hanging out with us, and they're curious. So can you tell us a little bit about what bats do during the night and maybe how far they travel?
Oh, well, that's a very good question. So during the night, they leave their roosts wherever they happen to be roosting just after it gets dark, and they leave the roost and then they fly out to their hunting grounds, which can be pretty far away. It depends on the species of bat, so I can't give you like an exact, all these bats fly this exact amount of kilometers or miles to their hunting grounds. It depends on where they're roosting and where the best place to find insects is. And actually, different bats they like different areas as well, so they have their own preferred hunting grounds. And they hunt for a few hours, and then they come. Actually, a lot of bats will come back in and digest, because, as you know, they eat a lot of insects, so they need some time to digest. And then they'll have another couple of hours where they'll hunt a little bit later on in the night before coming back again. And they actually have different roosts that they go to. So they might have a day roost, they might have some night roosts as well that they go, and they go to in between their hunting. And something that scientists do sometimes when they want to study bats is, while they're out flying at night, they set up these things called mist nets. So they're very, very fine nets, just like this one. And the bats, they have to put them high up in the air to catch the bats. And the bats will fly into the nets, and don't worry, they don't get hurt. And the scientists can then untangle them from the nets and take measurements. They can learn about which bat species are in an area. They can measure their wings. They can look at how old they are and the health of the bat, and get all sorts of really good information. And then, of course, they let the bats go, and they can continue on their way to hunt for insects, or if they're fruit bats, looking for their yummy fruit or nectar or pollen, depending on what they're hunting for, depending on what kind of bat they are.
All right, another great question. Before we jump into a couple more questions, I did want to make sure that we shared the link. So there are some educators asking about where they can find the bat cam. I have a few links queued up here. I just want to make sure I pick the right one. Marian, what's the link for the bat cam? I want to pop that up on the screen.
So the bat cam, you can find it on the Palisades Center Parks Canada website. That should be there.
Okay.
And you can search Watchable Wildlife.
All right, very cool. So we've got that popped up there. We definitely want to check out that cam when it's the right time. Our second graders with Miss Megan are joining us. Let me bring them in live. They're joining us in Quebec. How's everyone doing today?
Good.
Good to see ya.
Say hi.
Hi.
Hey, everyone.
We had lots of questions, but one of our first ones was, is a bat faster than a cheetah?
Is a bat faster than a cheetah?
Yep. Yeah.
We tried to do some research. The kids think yes, so we're checking with the expert.
Well, the Mexican free-tailed bat has actually been recorded flying short bursts at incredibly high speeds. So do you know offhand the land speed of a cheetah?
No, but when we looked it up, the one page we found said cheetahs could go, I think, 75 miles an hour.
Yeah, about 70 miles per hour.
70 miles per hour. So I believe that the Mexican free-tailed bat can go a little bit faster for a very short amount of time.
There you go. Yes, you guys are right.
All right, very cool. Great question. Well, we have you on screen. You want to sneak another one in?
Yes, the other one was about their bat's eyes. Are they actually blind as a bat, as the saying would go?
Absolutely not. Bats have pretty good vision, actually. But of course, they are nocturnal. So the microbats and all of the bats in Canada, they use echolocation to hunt for their prey. So usually they are using noise. So they're using sound, their mouths or their noses. Some of them echolocate with their nose and their ears. So that's why sometimes you see bats with such strange looking faces, strange noses, and really long ears, because they use echolocation to hunt for their prey. And it's too high for us to hear, but there are some scientific instruments that can record bat calls and translate them so that our human ears can hear them. So that's what it sounds like. And as the calls get quicker and quicker and quicker, that's when they're getting closer to the prey. It's called a feeding buzz. So they'll shoot out a little bit of echolocation to see if they can find anything. And then when they hone in on something, it gets quicker and quicker and quicker as they get closer to that insect. And then they scoop it up out of the air and eat it and gobble it all up. Yummy beetles and moths and mosquitoes. Fruit bats, they use a lot of their nose as well, but for smelling the fruit. But bats are not blind at all. They can see.
All right, very cool. I'm going to jump to another question from our YouTube crew because there's so many great questions here. Actually, a few more shout outs as I'm scrolling down. We've got as far away as California and Michigan, some more classes in Alberta that are joining us. We touched on white nose syndrome in the video. And our class here, Mr. Barcina's class, is curious, how do they get it? How do they come in contact with the fungus that causes that syndrome?
So we don't know exactly how it came to North America. The theories right now is it came over from Europe. And it's a fungus that really likes the same kind of conditions that bats do in their hibernacula. So it grows in the damp, cool caves that bats like to use over the winter. So they can get in contact with white nose syndrome through another bat that might be infected because it stayed in a cave that had white nose syndrome, or from being in that area. So quite often it can be traced bat to bat. Because they gather in huge numbers as well, especially when they're swarming just before hibernation. But we also at Parks Canada have closed a lot of caves to visitors. You need a permit and you need to follow decontamination protocols because we want to make sure that humans aren't carrying the spores from different caves, so from cave to cave. Because white nose syndrome doesn't affect us at all, but the spores can be carried on our shoes or on our gear or on our clothing. So we want to make absolutely sure that if we have scientists going into a cave, they follow a really strict decontamination protocol, change out all the gear, make sure they wash it really, really well, so that we want to make sure that we're not spreading it as well.
Absolutely. So very important. I'd like to share another one of the links that you shared with me. If you do want to research a little bit more, we've got this website here, www.whitenosesyndrome.org, where you can learn a little bit more about this fungus that is affecting bats. Okay, let's see. Let's see if there's any follow-ups in some of our camera classrooms. Give me a wave if we need to come back to your classroom if you have another question. So it looks like our grade 6 squirrels. I see someone front and center. There we go. Oh, and try the mute again. I don't think it came on for us. Okay. There we go.
How many species of the 18 are going extinct or becoming endangered in Canada?
That's a really good question. So 3 bat species are listed as endangered nationally on the COSWIC list. So that's the little brown bat, the northern bat, and the tricolored bat. So those 3 species nationally are listed as endangered. Although there are some other bats that may be listed provincially as well for other various reasons, including some of the migrating bats that can get in trouble with wind turbines. They get in trouble with that, but scientists and people who are working with wind turbines are working really hard together to come up with solutions to take care of the bats as well.
All right. So, Marian, we do have time for a few more questions, but I know we're just not going to get everything in. So what I want to do is I made a Padlet here where classrooms can add their questions. And I can share this Padlet with you as well, Marian. So you can come back in a couple days and answer some questions. So there it is, padlet.com/ the initials for Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants /bats. I'm going to share that in the YouTube chat as well. So classrooms there can jump in. I'll also share this link with the educators who registered directly for the event as well. So we can keep that conversation going and catch some of those questions that we're not going to be able to get in live today. Let's bring in our 3rd graders in Newcastle Public School. There they are.
What is a bat's predator?
Good question. So bats have a couple of different predators. One of the big ones are birds of prey. So owls can be a big predator for bats. House cats as well sometimes can hunt bats if you have an outdoor cat. So it's good to keep your kitties inside at night so that they're not going out after the bats. So a lot of it, there are birds of prey, raccoons as well sometimes can look for a bat snack.
All right. Lots of predators for the bats. Miss T, is that somebody up at the camera? I think it is. Let's go back to Surrey, British Columbia.
Okay, we're ready.
We got you.
How much time does bats sleep in winter?
How much time? How long do they hibernate? That depends on where they are. Winter lasts a little bit longer in different areas. So the bats that live further up north tend to hibernate longer than the bats for a little bit further south. They like to emerge about the same time that you see the insects starting to come out so that they have their food to eat. It's a various amount of time for the bats. The bats here at the Palisades have already left their roosts that we have the bat cam for, and they'll come back to this area like around mid-June. But they do start to emerge around springtime. So they go into hibernation around the fall and then come out around springtime when the bugs start coming back and when they've got more food to eat.
All right. Well, I have one more question we're going to use to wrap things up. But before we do, I do want to share this link as well. So I'm going to share all the links with the educators. Everybody who registered will get a copy of all the links so they can dive in a little bit deeper. I'll make sure you have that Padlet link so that you can send us some more questions and we can get those answered for you. But I do want to make sure that I share, there it is, this link here, exploringbytheseat.com/peak. Because that is where all the events coming up each month are going to be. You can see what's coming up. You can register for the events. After events finish, I'm going to put the videos up there as well. So if you couldn't make it live, you can tune into those events. So do make sure you bookmark that page. I'll send the link to everybody as well. But make sure that is a page, your go-to check-in. I want to say every day, but a couple times a month will probably be good. But you can find lots of the events that are coming up there. Marian, I think the perfect question to end off on, this has come up several times in the YouTube chat. What can we do? What can students do in their classrooms, in their own backyard? How can we protect bats? Because they definitely need our help.
Oh, absolutely. And number one is education. So sharing all this cool information that you know about bats and teaching people about how cool they are, about the fact that they're so helpful to humans by eating all these bugs. There are some plants that we wouldn't have if it weren't for bats, because they are pollinators as well as seed dispersers for those fruit bats and some nectar eating bats. And although you don't necessarily want to have bats living in your attic like we do here, we're very prepared for that. What you can do is provide housing for them with a bat box, which looks something like this. So this one is actually cut in half so you can see the inside, but this is what a bat box looks like. And the bats fly in and they land on this little piece of wood here. There's some grooves in it so that they can grab on with their claws, and then they climb in. And there are 4 different chambers in this one, so they can actually choose what bedroom they want. If it's too hot or too cold in one area, they can move around and choose a different location to roost. Now, it is really important if you are going to build a bat box or install a bat box in your area to do some research about how high it should be, because you don't want it too low. Bats like to drop down before they start flying. They're not like birds where they can jump off and take off from the ground. They like to have that little extra momentum. And temperature is really important for the bats. So you don't want them to be too hot or too cold. So there's lots of places that you can look online for information about bat boxes and about building or buying your own to provide a house for your bats.
All right. Well, I shared one of those links that you shared with me. It's down there at the bottom. It's a big one. I put it on YouTube as well. And of course, we'll send it directly to all of the educators' inboxes so they have that with them. I tried to build one time. Whew, it was probably not a great bat home. I don't think too many bats would have been too interested in it. So there is, like you said, that option. You can purchase them. Or if you're a little more handy, maybe you and your parents could build one on your own. Well, I want to start off with a huge shout out to our YouTube crew. What a great group of classrooms and so many great questions. I'm going to share that Padlet link one more time here. Again, I'm going to send that out to everybody's email. A big shout out to our camera classrooms. You are so awesome today. Let's take a quick look at some of them. There they are. Hey, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today and for those great questions. And Marian, thank you so much for kicking things off in our mountain series. We are so excited for our next event coming up next month. And again, I'll put that link up one more time for everybody to see. And of course, you'll find it in our Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants newsletters. We'll keep everybody in the community updated. And please do share this with your schools and your communities. And let's bring as many classrooms as we can to the mountain parks, because there's so much learning happening in the parks.
Absolutely. And even if you can't join us in person, the Palisades Stewardship Education Center does offer virtual programs as well for your classroom. So we can pop our email address right down in a banner there if we can. And yeah, don't hesitate to contact us if you're interested in some virtual programs that the Palisades offers, or some in-person ones eventually as well too. We'd love to have you here. I'd be so excited to see you.
Perfect. Well, we'll make sure that gets shared in the link as well. Marian, thank you for that great presentation. And thank you for taking us on your bat journey and your realization that bats are pretty darn cool. I think a lot of our students are there already, and I hope we change the minds of those who might not be there yet. So let's pop everybody back in one more time. Our camera classrooms are still hanging out. Thanks so much, everybody. Maybe a little bit of that action for the bat. It was great seeing you today. And have a great rest of the week. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much.